Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim Defede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim Defede. In November, Florida voters will get to decide a constitutional amendment on property taxes. It will need 60% to pass, and if it does, homestead exemptions would increase from $50,000 to $150,000 in 2027 and then to $250,000 in 2028. The governor wanted the exemption to also include those taxes applied to schools. The legislature refused to go along with that part of the plan, saying, well, it would decimate local school districts. As it is, critics argue the constitutional amendment will cripple cities and counties. One of the most interesting aspects of the debate, particularly in the Senate, was just how much senators, even those from Miami, hate Miami-Dade County government and think it is both incompetent and corrupt. Here is just a sample of some of their comments.
I need not tell you the mess that my county government is. I need not mention that.
When Miami-Dade County disclosed a $400 million deficit because they knew that this was coming their way, the initial focus was not on the extravagant salaries on high-ranking officials that often eclipse the money made by those in the Oval Office. No. They went after first responders, firefighters. They went after programs for children and support for seniors. More bad financial decisions, such as the procurement of $1 billion electric buses. 69 electric buses, my understanding, were purchased. Only 3 remain.
But I got to echo some of what Senator Garcia said. Like Miami-Dade specifically beats their chests about how great and 21st century are and the tech bros and all that stuff. I can't find a clean bathroom in Miami Airport. Maggie's like, I know I need my steps, but why is this monorail thing always out of order when we have to go to D60?
I am sorry for all the trouble in Miami-Dade County. It's amazing over the last 8 years how many bills we have had to implement statewide because of Miami-Dade County. But this proposal, this amendment, does not fix the problems of Miami-Dade County. Maybe they'll have less money to work with, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to be equally inefficient or corrupt.
Yikes. Mean, but also true. Now, we will obviously spend a fair amount of time in the coming months examining the actual impact to local governments. But now I want to shift to my interview with House Speaker Danny Perez. This special legislative session was really the swan song for Perez, whose 2-year term is now coming to a close. This week, President Donald Trump announced he was nominating Perez to be the U.S. ambassador to Brazil. I spoke to the speaker about the new post, but we began with the property tax issue. Give me your thoughts as to what this amendment accomplishes. Does it do enough in your opinion? I know the House had different proposals, and whether or not, at the end of the day, I know you voted to put this on for voters to vote on. Do you support it? Will you be voting in favor of it?
Yeah, Jim, I think the most important part of your question really is the statement that the voters of specifically Miami-Dade County, but really the whole state, are going to have the opportunity to vote in favor or in opposition of this proposal in the November election. It will be on the ballot. The governor came out with a proposal a week ago, and the House and the Senate together amended that proposal in order to make sure that we protected the funding for our K through 12 system and took out the school property tax that would have been eliminated within the proposal of the governor, amongst other changes. I do believe that this is a proposal that is for the betterment of definitely homeowners, but for sure all Miami residents. The truth is, how is this going to affect local governments? That's the $1 million question. And no one really knows the answer to that. But I have no doubt that local governments are going to have to make a tough decision. And as we speak, Jim, they're doing their due diligence to see what type of effect this proposal would have on their budgets, assuming it would pass. And until they're able to perform that internal study, I still think that it's a gray area without a definitive answer on how this is gonna change the services provided by local governments.
So just to be clear, are you still waiting to learn more about that before you decide if you're going to vote yes or no on the amendment?
I'm in favor of the amendment, Jim. I think after the changes that we made to the proposal, I do think that this is for the betterment. Look, all governments have waste, and waste isn't something illegitimate. Waste is something that is unnecessary, and every single branch of government has that. People want to say only local governments have wasteful spending, therefore this amendment should pass because they're going to have enough funds to provide essential services. It sounds like a law school question, but that is the assumption of many people. But the truth is, it's not just local governments. The state government has wasteful spending too.
I think one of the criticisms of this process, and again, I'll repeat, the House had committee weeks and committee hearings on this going back into last year. They came up with several proposals. They tried to vote on them. The Senate went nowhere with it. The governor went nowhere with it. But what we were left with then was a proposal by the governor that came out on a Wednesday, was really put in bill form Thursday, and then was voted on by both chambers, a few days later on Tuesday. There wasn't even the type of scoring that you would normally do with a bill of this importance from the Revenue Estimating Conference or others, sort of talking about the fiscal impact. Are you satisfied? Do you think this was a good process to get to this amendment?
The better process would have been for the governor and the Senate to engage with the House during the 60-day regular session, during our committee process, during our hearings, during our debate, during our proposals, during our votes. We had 7 different proposals in the House, Jim. All of them went through the committee process. All of them had robust debate and questions and changes. That is the job of the elected official at the state level. The House attempted to do that, but we did it alone. And as everyone knows in the state legislature, acting alone isn't going to get you very far. There's 3 legs to the stool here, one being the Senate, the other being the governor alongside the House. And neither the Senate nor the governor wanted to have that conversation until last Wednesday. And Jim, the truth is, when I saw that proposal, I saw it at the same time as everyone else. It's not like there was some sort of conversation on the House's opinion. It's why those changes happened after the proposal was released. If you look at the proposal, Jim, many of the pieces of the proposal were different ideas that the House initially had. Again, we had them independent of each other. So I'll give you an example. We had an increase of homestead exemption of $200,000 by Representative Busada. The governor came out with a $250,000 homestead exemption over 2 years. Not very different than the House. The difference was we said we wanted to make sure that first responders were taken care of. The governor left that in a little bit of a gray area. We wanted to make sure that school property tax weren't included in the proposal. The governor left that outside of his proposal. And so we had some sort of different in how to get to the finish line, but we could have had this conversation, Jim, way before. Nevertheless, and here's the important part, we still had a committee process. Once the proposal in last week was released, we had questions, we had debate, and obviously we had amendments. That's why we ended up with a different product. And we had a vote on the floor where where representatives were able to vote up or down and have their opinion heard. And both voted in either direction. Both parties did. So I think it's as good of a product as we could have gotten across the board. But us in the House, we had looked into this significantly, and I think our members were ready to make that decision by the time it was released.
One of the things that was changed in the bill, and it's not a huge change, but I think it's symbolically different, was that there was initially taxpayer money to be used to lobby voters, basically $5 million or so to spend on an ad campaign in support of the amendment. Both the House and the Senate stripped that out. Why was that important to you?
It was very important for me personally to strip that out. I don't believe that when the voters have a choice on essentially amending the Constitution and putting an amendment on the ballot, that government should be influencing them one way or another. Jim, I'm in favor of this proposal. I'm in favor of this amendment. But my vote at the ballot in November should count just as much as yours or any other one of your viewers that are watching this today. I don't think that government should be influencing them to either vote in favor or against any amendments on the ballot. Today, it's property taxes. Tomorrow, it's a tax increase.
This in part came about because of what happened last year with the constitutional amendments on abortion and on marijuana. I know that the House and that you in particular were upset by the use of some taxpayer dollars from certain agencies to start an ad campaign. Was it partly your fear that was going to be happening again?
look, I was very vocal last year with how that money was used, and I think the House was very vocal on that position as well. I haven't moved from that position. I don't think the money should have been used.
You talked about wasteful government spending at both the local, state level, all of it. I don't know if you watched some of the debate in the Senate, but several senators, including senators from Miami-Dade, absolutely trashed Miami-Dade County government and really used that as a whipping boy to say that we needed this amendment because we needed to put handcuffs basically on local government, particularly Miami-Dade County. You come from Miami-Dade. You're close to the chairman of the county commission. What's your reaction to all of those attacks on Miami-Dade?
I have relationships with all the commissioners. I have a relationship with the mayor, and many times we disagree. I would say more often than not, the commission and the mayor's office disagree with some of the initiatives that we have at the state level that affect them. However, I think to say that only Miami-Dade has wasteful spending is a little tongue in cheek. We have 67 counties, and I would be willing to bet that the other 66 counties also have wasteful spending, maybe even more wasteful spending than we have here in Miami. Miami is the largest county. We have the largest budget. And yes, this is going to put our local government in a tough position, but it's also going to put the other 66 counties in a tough position as well. I'd say some of the other counties, some of these more rural counties, are going to have a tougher time than Miami. And 90%, 80% of their budget comes from property taxes. And if this were to pass, some of these counties are going to have to make a decision as to whether or not they're going to have to either close their doors or legitimately cut essential services. I don't think we're going to have to make that decision in Miami. I trust our local government to make the right decision to make sure that our essential services are still funded. But that's a decision that they're going to have to make at the right time.
Up next, more of my interview with Danny Perez, where I ask him the following. The Democratic leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, who posted the same day, there it is, the Florida House Speaker traded a gerrymandered congressional map in the middle of a decade for an ambassadorship. The culture of corruption is happening in plain sight. Remember in November. Your reaction to what Hakeem Jeffries wrote? His answer when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. We continue now with my conversation with House Speaker Danny Perez as I ask him what he thought he achieved as Speaker.
I would say our two greatest accomplishments. Number one was lowering the budget voluntarily. That was a big deal to me. I came into the House in 2017. Since then, prior to me being Speaker, we had increased the budget in those 6 years, in that 6-year span, more than any other 6-year span based on a percentage in the history of the state of Florida. And, we tout ourselves as fiscal conservatives, yet we were increasing the budget under Governor DeSantis for far too long. And I told myself that we were going to voluntarily stop that. If we're going to campaign on being fiscal conservatives, then we actually have to walk the walk. We did that, Jim. We were the first administration ever in the history of the state of Florida to voluntarily, not because of a recession, voluntarily lower the budget 2 years in a row. I am so proud of that because I believe that when you're able to go and campaign on something and you actually perform on it, then you did your job for the voters. We did our job for the voters that voted for us into office. That was my greatest accomplishment. And we did that together as a House. The second, I would say, was we were able to reestablish the independence of the legislature. And up until I became Speaker, far too often the legislature just folded and gave the governor's office their road to success without any opinion. I wanted to be on the road to success with him, but I also wanted to be able to have an opinion. We are not employees of the governor's office. We are partners with the governor's office. And so I think we were able to reestablish that independence in order to come up with a better product for the state of Florida.
But that came with a lot of tension between you personally and the governor. There was a lot of attacks back and forth in terms of the governor attacking you in particular, a lot of the governor's supporters attacking you, and that level of tension. Why do you think the governor took it so personally that you were trying to establish the independence of the House again?
Well, I'm sure he didn't want a difference of opinion. I'm sure he wanted to do it his way or the highway. But look, I don't know. It's a question for the governor. I would have loved to have a greater relationship with the governor. It would have made my life significantly easier. But sometimes the tough decisions aren't easy. That's why they're tough decisions. And if it was easy, I guess everyone would be doing it. But we made the tough decisions, and they were the right decisions. But if you were to say, one downfall is I think it was a disgrace that the governor and I had no communication, that I would call him and he wouldn't answer, that I would ask for a meeting and he'd say no. I've said it before. I don't think that that's the role of a leader. I can sit with leaders that I disagree with. Quite frankly, I do all the time, to come to a conclusion, whether it's on the same page or a different page. Nonetheless, it's a conclusion. There's a way to be an elected leader, and it has to be civilly, professionally. And I don't think that that was something that was reciprocated from the governor's office. And it's a shame. It's a shame that that happened. But look, here's a good thing, Jim. In November, the governor will be out of office. In November, I will be out of office. We will have a new governor. We will have a new speaker. We will have a new Senate president. And hopefully they're able to actually have a fruitful relationship while doing what's in the best interest of Florida.
I want to ask just real briefly about Alligator Alcatraz, where the state is still waiting on funding for it. Do you believe at the end of the day this is going to end up costing Florida taxpayers substantially, that there will not be the reimbursement that DeSantis had promised, and that this will be looked on as a boondoggle for the state?
As far as the reimbursement with the federal government is concerned, I've heard as well, and I've heard the governor state that he's absolutely confident the federal government's going to reimburse the state on it. Those aren't conversations that I'm involved with. Quite frankly, those are conversations between the executive branch and the federal government. Look, I hope we get that federal funding to kind of fill in a little bit of that gap. Alligator Alcatraz, Jim, was something that the state government attempted. And, whether or not it was fruitful, I guess we'll have to see once, all the numbers are on a balance sheet and you start to balance it off and kind of see what the cost was. I'm not there yet. And probably I won't be there because I'll probably leave office before we have that finality. But I hope the federal government does send the money, but those aren't conversations that I'm in line with.
So, but you think that it is possible that we'll look back on Alligator Alcatraz as a huge mistake financially for the state of Florida?
I don't know. I think I can give you an opinion on that once we kind of, close that book and see all the numbers. I don't have all the numbers to be very honest with you, Jim. So it's a little premature to give an opinion. I'm never shy of giving an opinion, but I don't want to give one prematurely.
All right. I want to shift gears for a second and really something remarkable in the sense of, if you look at some of the diplomatic posts that have been promoted by Donald Trump in his second term, Kevin Cabrera, former county commissioner, is now the ambassador in Panama. Benjamin Leon, appointed ambassador to Spain. Bernie Navarro, the ambassador in Peru. And you have just been appointed as the ambassador to Brazil. These are all major posts: Panama, Spain, Peru, Brazil. All Cuban Americans, all coming out of South Florida. Just take a step back for a second. What does that tell you? And give me a sense of how you sort of view that and that group of people moving forward.
Look, I think, one, it's an honor to be nominated by the President of the United States to potentially be the American ambassador to Brazil. The nomination process will take place over the next several months, and I'll kind of be learning on the go throughout that process. So that's one side. But the second is, Jim, look, I think all of them have something in common, which is they come from Cuban backgrounds. I think all of us understand the importance of standing up for democracy. All of us understand the importance of capitalism, and all of us understand what happens when it's taken away from you. And so if I had to find one similarity between all of us, it's that. I think we're very proud to be Americans, but we understand that democracy is important, and we want to make sure that the entire world, not just the United States, recognizes the importance of that.
Who gave you the news that you were being appointed?
Honestly, I didn't see it. When my phone started blowing up with text messages because the White House had released the nomination list, that was when I figured it out. I probably found out after many other people found out.
So you hadn't, the president or Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, hadn't called you to tell you that this was coming?
Neither of them have called me to tell me, no, sir.
How long have you known you've been under consideration for the post in Brazil?
Look, there was a rumor mill, of course, as any good political fact is, and I had heard the rumors as well. But consideration is one thing, and nomination's a complete other. But when it became official that I was nominated, it was honestly very, very humbling.
Again, I don't know how this process works. You didn't have to submit like financial records, like a vetting process. You didn't have to submit all that sort of stuff in advance?
That's currently happening as we speak.
So that's happening now. Okay. By the way, have you ever been to Brazil?
I went one time when I was maybe 20 years old for 3 days.
Do you speak Portuguese?
Very little, but I gotta get on the saddle and start to learn some.
I know that you've seen that there's been a bit of reaction to your posting, and part of it came from the Democratic leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, who posted the same day There it is. The Florida House Speaker traded a gerrymandered congressional map in the middle of a decade for an ambassadorship. The culture of corruption is happening in plain sight. Remember in November. Your reaction to what Hakeem Jeffries wrote?
Hakeem Jeffries is ready for reality TV, just like every other liberal DC politician, trying to just throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. That's inaccurate. That's false. That's a lie. But I don't entertain any of that. I'm sure he got the clicks and the likes, which was probably his only purpose.
So again, when you talk about there was no conversation in advance at all about you receiving an ambassadorship to Brazil or any country for that matter.
No. And Hakeem Jeffries insinuating that it was a tit for tat is insane. I never spoke to anyone about this nomination while the redistricting maps were taking place.
The other thing that has come up, and I just want to give you an opportunity to address it, is House Bill 7031, which does a number of things. It allows that for individuals, for instance, who are serving in the military or, who are required to serve overseas, that they can maintain their homestead exemption in Florida. The bill also has a provision that says an individual who is appointed or employed on the full-time basis by the United States government as a diplomatic, intelligence, consular, or foreign service officer would also be able to maintain their homestead exemption and save our homes qualifications if they are required to serve abroad. There has been the insinuation that this will now benefit you. Did you give any consideration to the fact that the rumor mill had you as being potentially appointed in voting for that, in proposing that, and pushing that forward?
This proposal, number one, came from property appraisers across the state of Florida. This was put into the package, voted out of the package before I ever had a nomination. One thing has nothing to do with the other, but I think it is important to note that Florida does have a lot of people that are serving the country and are overseas. It's not about the ambassadorships. You have military posts, as you said, and you have other diplomats that are doing so. And because they're willing to serve, they shouldn't lose their homestead when they're coming back to Florida either way. It was something that I was in favor of well before the nomination, and of course I still am.
What is it about serving as the ambassador to Brazil that intrigues you, that interests you?
Public service intrigues me. I started public service when I was 29. I'm now 38 years old. I've served this state well with the best intentions. And if I get to do the same for our country, I'm going to take that opportunity. And hopefully that's something that comes to fruition and I'm able to do so in Brazil.
It's a tense relationship right now between the United States and Brazil. It's Lula, who's the current president, is up for re-election. Probably assuming you get confirmed and actually serve, you'll probably either deal with him or a new candidate, potentially Bolsonaro's son. I'm just sort of curious. This is a huge trading partner with the United States, Brazil is, but has also had a very tense relationship. How much are you trying to right now cram on what exactly is happening in Brazil?
I've been living in a tense political situation for years. I think I'll be just fine. I'm comfortable in that position because at the end of the day, you just got to make the right decisions and stand up for what you believe in. I've read the articles just like you have. I don't know anything or have read anything that probably you haven't or your viewers haven't, Jim. Once I get to this country, once I get to Brazil, I'm sure I'll be informed of the situation at hand and represent the United States as best as I can and hopefully make all Americans proud.
We'll be right back. Well, that's all the time we have today. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to contact me at jdefede@cbs.com. I do enjoy hearing from you. Thanks again for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.